Morning, everyone, and welcome to our Heavenly Parent Holy Community Oceania morning Hundoke. Today we have on this Thursday, the 9th of July 2026, or the 25th of May in the 14th year of Chongalguk, we have Reverend Takaaki Ito presenting. Thank you all for coming, and let's begin with a bow to our true parents of heaven, earth, and humankind, Chanji Champulinge. Tombe. Paro. And let's recite our family pledge, both in Korean and English.
가전맨세 2. 전국 주인 우리 가족은 참 사랑을 중심하고 하늘 부모님과 참 부모님을 모시어 전주의 대표적 가정이 되며 중심적 가정이 되어 가정에서는 효자, 국가에서는 춘신, 세계에서는 성인, 전주에서는 선자의 가정의 도리를 완성할 것을 맹세하나이다.
Family pledge number 2. Our family, the owner of Chongalguk, pledges to represent and become central to heaven and earth by attending the Heavenly Parent and True Parents. We pledge to perfect the dutiful family way of filial sons and daughters in our family, patriots in our nation, saints in the world, and divine sons and daughters in heaven and on earth by centering on true love.
Thank you. I'd like to share Mother's prayer again. Heavenly Parent, the creator and master of the universe, today we have finally reached this unique day after you patiently endured and waited for 6,000 years due to the fall. Heavenly Parent, we thank you. We offer our profound gratitude and our humble apologies. Now you are truly the rightful master of this earth. Our second, third, and fourth generation, the pure water, born of many blessed families who exist because of true parents, are going out to the world to impart the vision of your earthly kingdom across the land. From this day forward, Heavenly Parent, please embrace and love your children with all your heart. This world will now gradually be set in order under your dominion, and a world of one family of humankind attending the Heavenly Parent with true love will surely unfold. In the name of Holy Mother Han, I proclaim to the world that the gates of heaven, the gates of God's kingdom of Chongalguk, are now wide open. Arju. And before we welcome up Takaaki, I'd like to share a praise song. So please.
뜻이 이루어질 그때까지 저희들은 어머님과 함께 나아가겠습니다. 부모님의 꿈을 이루어 드릴 수 있는
will become
참된
sons and
자녀가
daughters who will be
되겠습니다.
able to fulfill your dreams through parents, 아주.
자력 연내 바로
Now let's welcome up Reverend Takaaki. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes, can see your screen. Oops, just closed it. Yep.
Okay. I'd like to share today through Father's speech on February 14th, 2005, titled The Perfect Restoration of Cain and Abel Brotherhood and the Ideal World of Creation. This is Father's speech at occasion of True Parents' birthday celebration and also the crowning ceremony on February 14, 2005. Respected guests from home and abroad, ladies and gentlemen, this is a time of great transition in history. At this moment, the bright sun of the fifth year of God's kingdom of Oceania is causing flowers of life and love to bloom for all humankind and all things in the universe. God's grace and blessing are upon us. Ladies and gentlemen, my entire life of 80 some years has been consistently devoted to upholding God's will for the salvation of humankind. After holding over 10,000 meetings and public speeches to teach the words of truth, today my lifelong ministry is reaching its fulfillment. Generally, we think of history in terms of people and events as they happen. However, there is another way to understand history from the vertical perspective of God's providence. Today, you have all participated in the Peace King crowning ceremony of cosmic unity. This was an event unprecedented in history. History will record this day in eternity. Today, we are receiving God's abundant grace. We are beginning the second 4-year course in the Providence of Chonaguk, which runs from 2005 to 2008. In commemorating this significant day, I would like to inform you about the heavenly laws that we must know and practice in this age. The theme of my speech is Perfect Restoration of Cain and Abel Brotherhood and the Ideal World of Creation. God's Providence in Adam's Family. Ladies and gentlemen, if Adam and Eve, our human ancestors, had not fallen, God's original intention for them was to perfect themselves and establish a realm of unity of heart with God. They were to have been God's children and God's absolute object partners, relating only with Him. However, when they fell, they joined themselves in blood ties to Satan, and they fell to a lowly status where they were compelled to deal with Satan as well as God. I'm describing the situation immediately after the fall, when Adam and Eve only carried the original sin and had not yet done anything good or evil. At that point, they were in a midway position where they had to deal with both God and Satan. God then worked to separate Adam's family, caught in this midway position, from Satan. God began with the children of fallen Adam and their descendants. He placed Cain, the eldest among Adam's 3 sons, on Satan's side, according to the order of the fall, and Abel, the second son, on the side of heaven. God worked this providence of salvation based on the law of restoration through indemnity. Since Satan had a claim on fallen Adam and Eve based on his connection by blood, God divided their children in this way and had them set up indemnity conditions on their own, with the goal of restoring them both to the side of heaven. Satan, for his part, knew that God had a claim on human beings as their original creator. Therefore, he could not just seize the fallen people for his side unless they made evil conditions that would allow him to invade them. In this way, God and Satan carried out an invisible struggle in the lives of Cain and Abel over the conditions they would make to restore the lineage of true love. This invisible struggle has expanded ever since throughout the history of Adam's descendants. We know from the Bible the tragic outcome. Cain, the eldest son, killed Abel, the second son. He should have naturally submitted to his favored brother, but he did not. How intense was God's grief and bitter his sorrow. Here were his children, whom he had created based on his heart's original true love. Yet now Satan had taken them away. True love, the very principle of heaven, was removed from this world. Heaven's lineage, which should have been passed down throughout the generations for eternity, was destroyed in one moment. God created Adam and Eve as his children. When they grew to maturity, he intended to give them the marriage blessing so that they could establish the way of true love. God was longing for a family that he alone could love. However, to God's deep sorrow, he could not embrace his children, Adam and Eve, in true love. Nor could he embrace his grandchildren, Cain and Abel, in true love. God's sorrow over this has persisted throughout history. God, Adam and Eve, and their children were supposed to form a family of 3 generations. Had they established it, the human fall would never have occurred. Satan, who has tormented human beings and ravaged human history for tens of thousands of years, would never have existed. Humankind would be one great family. God would be the head of every family, living as 3 generations. Nonetheless, in the end, the second and third generations of God's first family, Adam's family, failed to fulfill the conditions set up for them. They failed in the limited responsibility that was given them as their portion in accordance with the principle of creation. Here was the beginning of humankind's tragic history. Yet God could not give up on his creation. He began his providence restoration through indemnity in order to find at all costs his children whom Satan had abducted. God is a Lord of principles, fundamental rules, and laws. If God abandoned the realm of 3 generations that was lost in Adam's family, it would have been tantamount to abandoning his entire work of creation. Accordingly, God waited 130 years after Cain's murder of Abel and raised Adam's third son, Seth, as a new central figure. Seth had to fulfill the responsibility that Abel did not, which was to establish the realm of the elder son and also to restore God's lineage. From that time forth, God called descendants from Seth's lineage to establish appropriate conditions of indemnity as he advanced his restoration providence to separate humankind from Satan. God was to rule the cosmos with absolute authority as a true father, true teacher, and true Lord of humankind. Yet Adam's family trampled on God's idea of creation and drove God into the back alleys of history. Today, all of you must understand clearly how the history of separating good from evil, centering on Cain and Abel, has providentially affected human history. You should be aware of the significance it has for us as we begin the 5th year of Chanyeolguk. As a Lord of true love, God created human beings as his children based on the standard of absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience. This is a principle for all created beings. When God created, he completely and absolutely invested himself, absolutely affirming his creation. This is why we human beings, as God's object partners, should offer our absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience to God, who is our subject partner. The same principle applies to the relationship between Cain and Abel, even though they represent the side of evil and good, respectively. It is a heavenly law that Cain, who stands in the position of an object partner, should go before God through Abel. Cain should attend Abel as he would his father, master, or teacher. Abel, for his part, should maintain an absolute standard. His position is to represent God. Like God, he should embrace and love Cain as he would his own child, with absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience. By having a character worthy of trust and respect, Abel should induce Cain to submit to him naturally. This is a heavenly principle for resolving the countless Cain and Abel conflicts that have appeared in the history of God's providence. Whenever this path was not followed, the conflict, bloodshed, and war only continued unabated. With each failure, God had to go through the ordeal of seeing his providence prolonged. The thousands of years of human history bear living testimony to this principle. God's providence in Noah's family and Abraham's family. I do not have time to explain in detail all the events that have occurred in the history of the providence to complete the restoration of the realm of the eldest son and restore God's lineage. After Seth in Adam's family, and following a period of 1,600 years, the providence moved to Noah's family. God called Noah as a central figure and walked through his family to restore through indemnity the failure of Adam's family. However, this providence also ended in failure due to the mistake of Ham, Noah's second son, who stood in the position of Abel. God waited 400 more years and then called Abraham. He was the eldest son of Terah, an idol maker who symbolized the satanic war. Abraham's life was a story of making conditions to restore the realm of the eldest son and the lineage. Through the three generations of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, God worked a providence to restore in a short time the three historical generations of Adam's family, Noah's family, and Abraham's family. Finally, Jacob established the conditions for the restoration of the realm of the eldest son and the lineage. By going into exile and living like a gypsy, he was victorious in achieving the condition of separation from Satan. Based upon that success, Jacob triumphed in wrestling with the angel and was blessed with the name Israel. The relationship between Esau and Jacob was the same as that between Cain and Abel. Through the principal way of absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience, and the successful cooperation between mother and son, Jacob was finally able to recover the realm of the eldest son by bringing his father Isaac and elder brother Esau into natural submission to him. In Jacob's family, Joseph, who was the son of Rachel, the wife on God's side, entered Egypt and was successful in his course of restitution. Later on, he brought his 11 brothers who stood in the position of Cain into natural submission to him. Thus, he was victorious in the role of Abel. Having become the prime minister of Egypt, he brought Jacob's family to live with him. What if Joseph had also invited Esau's family to Egypt? Then the historical struggle between Cain and Abel would have come to an end. Later, these difficulties, such as the Israelites' 40 years of wandering in the wilderness under Moses, would never have arisen. God's providence through Jesus. 4,000 years after the failure of Adam and Eve, Jesus finally appeared out of the lineage that stems from the victorious foundation of Jacob's family. God raised the 10 northern tribes and 2,000 tribes into a united nation of Israel, and God prepared Judaism. God set up Israel and Judaism in another Cain and Abel relationship to create the environment for receiving the substantial Messiah. God raised Israel in the position of Cain, representing the political realm, and raised Judaism in the position of Abel, representing the religious sphere. The relationship between John the Baptist and Jesus was also that of Cain and Abel. If Israel and Judaism had clearly understood the teachings of the Old Testament, which were given as a guide for the 4,000-year providence restoration, they would have united internally and externally. Led by John the Baptist, they would have attended Jesus as the King of Kings and true parent. Jesus would then have been able to build the kingdom of heaven, God's ideal creation, within his lifetime. Furthermore, if John the Baptist had clearly understood and fulfilled his responsibility as Cain, how could Jesus have died on the cross? Yet, despite receiving direct revelations and visions from heaven, despite hearing Jesus' guidance that Jesus was himself the Lord and able, in the end, John the Baptist could not surmount the challenge to live by absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience. Furthermore, Jesus came as the second Adam. His family was to have been the true ancestors of humankind, passing on the lineage of purity, pure blood, pure love, and pure harmony. Therefore, God intended to give Jesus his marriage blessing in order that he might form a true family that would become the root of heaven's true lineage for all the ages. However, with his death on the cross, once again was driven to the darkest grief, his hopes crushed. God had sent Jesus, his only begotten Son, to recover the lost position of Adam. God had given Jesus his seal as the second Adam, hoping that he would bring the 4,000-year history of the providence of restoration to its final conclusion. Instead, once again, God's will was frustrated. Once again, the core that God had established as a central axis of history was pulled out from its roots. From that time on, God's providence restoration began to accelerate. Still, God never deviates from the track of the principles and laws that he established at the creation. He cannot lead the providence arbitrarily or capriciously. Consequently, after losing Jesus, who was to have become the eternal Abel for humankind, God had to patiently endure another 2,000 years of history. During that time, he prepared the environment and conditions that would no longer permit failure. And on that foundation, God finally sent to this earth, the person who is speaking to you now, with his seal as the second advent of the law. The manifestation has never been smooth. Satan is a creature so shrewd and cunning that he could trample even on the heart of the omniscient, omnipotent God. For the past 80 plus years, my life has run the gamut of ups and downs. Yet, by establishing all the indemnity conditions necessary for each stage of the providence, I gained victory at the great transition point of the 20th century. This was when the conflict and struggle between Cain and Abel into the global struggle between communism and the love struggle. In the year 2001, I was able to declare the era of Chonilguk, the time of true love, under the sovereignty of Abel, and to offer God his kingship. On that victorious foundation, in Jerusalem in 2003, offered Jesus his coronation as the King of Peace of the first Israel. In 2004, crowning ceremonies were held in America, the second Israel, and Korea. Thus, I was elevated as the King of Peace, true parent of humankind. Standing at the world, 6 billion people have entered the second stage in the three-stage process of building the kingdom of China and growth. Today, humankind is mandated to fulfill three great goals. These are to change our lineage in order to complete the registration providence, to transfer the realm. You know that the lamb is obedient to its master, absolute obedience of a lamb. You should offer a peace and your eternal Abel. You should be thieves of the entire realm of Cain. There's providential history. Through imperceptible, we are at a point of great transition. Now is moving toward completion with tremendous speeds to advance God's providence. Among them, I'll highlight the Interreligious International Federation for World Peace and the Peace UN, the Interreligious International Peace Council. Their mission is to embrace the satanic realm and, in the position of able, liberate the Mongolian People's Federation for World Peace, which stands the position of Cain, representing Satan's realm. Thereby, they are to bring their world into oneness so that conflict and struggles between Cain and Abel will no longer stay in history. America, which represents the sphere of the world's religions, should stand as able to love and embrace the United Nations, which stands as Cain. Thus will America and the UN fulfill their responsibility for the cause of world salvation. Ladies and gentlemen, the true parents are our ultimate able. The position of able is designated by heaven. It is a position assigned by fate that cannot be evaded even in death. Every able is called to plant the seeds of true love, even at the cost of his or her life. Every able must take the path of absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience before God. This is because the inverse purpose of this path is to bring Cain to natural submission. It is our destiny to live in attendance to the true parents as our eternal able. They are the vertical axis, coming as the incarnation of the incorporeal God. The true parents are the Savior of humankind, the Messiah, and the second coming of the Lord. They are the King and Queen of peace in the kingdom of heaven on earth and in heaven. The kingdom of heaven on earth and in heaven now being set up by the true parents is the ideal kingdom, the ideal creation, which God has longed to see since the beginning of the universe. It is a central kingdom of peace. It will complete the era after the coming of heaven, which opened to humankind the months prior to 2005, the fifth year of Chanukah. It is a world of liberation and complete freedom. Here, all walls and borders that have divided peoples for thousands and tens of thousands of years are abolished, irrespective of their reasons and justifications. Here, all humankind lives as one family, transcending religion and nationality, and attends the true parents as their true teacher and true king. Our attitude in a time of great transition. Now that you know you live amidst such tremendous heavenly blessings, what should you do? How can you prepare yourself to receive these blessings? First and foremost, you should thoroughly rearrange your life. Begin by discovering the absolute realm of unity between your mind and body. This is how you can perfect yourself as an individual embodiment of truth, unblemished, clear, clean, and shining. Your life should be free of depths. In other words, you should achieve a revolution through atonement. Next, you should be able to live eternally without any shame in your conscience. This calls for a revolution of conscience. Then practice a life of true love, of living for the sake of others, yet you may not feel indebted in heart before true parents or any person. In other words, carry out a revolution of heart. The second thing you need to do is create heaven in your family life. The family is a palace of love. The perfect the four great realms of heart and the three great kingships in your family. Make your family a place that cultivates sons and daughters of filial piety, loyal citizens, saints, and divine sons and daughters. Let it become the paramount place to deeply experience God's heart. Let your family fulfill the promise of happiness that you and your spouse made to each other. Your ancestors will descend to your family and guide you on the path towards heaven. Turn your family into a blossom of true love and the very place where the flower bears fruit. Ladies and gentlemen, from this time forth, your life will not be simple. Wherever you are, whatever you do, hundreds and thousands of your ancestors will accompany you. They have suffered bitterly until now because they could not attend the true parents on earth. But for the next 4 years, they will live with you in order to attend the true parents substantially through you. They will cooperate with you, their descendants on earth, and support you as they're able. Their goal is to enter heaven with you. Keep in mind that while it may be possible to deceive all the 6 billion people of the world, you cannot deceive your ancestors. They will evaluate every aspect of your life. They will determine your reward and punishment based on heaven's standard of good and evil. Whether you are joyful, angry, sorrowful, or satisfied, you should not disappoint your good ancestors who will be watching your every move with blazing eyes. The next 4 years will be a serious time. Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, Confucius, all the good spirits in the spirit world, and your own good ancestors are being mobilized to come down to the earth. They will devote all their efforts to build the kingdom of heaven on earth. In other words, complete the kingdom of Chonilgo. Let us fulfill our responsibilities as Cain enables, with God above us and below us, in front of us and behind us, and to our right and left. Let us live with absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience, the standard that existed before creation. If we can unite and fulfill the way of embracing, forgiving, and loving, then the era after the coming of heaven will be the literal peace and prosperity reigns. Now, carrying with us this heavenly message, we must depart to spread the seeds. Each of us should become the creators of this new world as we go out to plant the seeds of true life and true love and represent heaven's family. Do not be so foolish as to scatter your seeds into the air to be carried off by the winds of secular vanity and immorality. Seek the humblest and lowest position. Plant your seeds in the deepest and richest fertile soil. Break down the walls between races, abolish the national borders, and bear the fruit of cross-cultural, interracial marriages that go beyond religion and nation. Let us do mighty works to uphold God's true lineage eternally. The providence of interracial, cross-cultural marriage shall elevate the Mongolian race and all humankind through the true love of the eternal God. In the Bible, as Lot's wife was leaving Sodom, she looked back, disobeying heaven's decree, and was turned into a pillar of salt. Today, you have received the heavenly decree. The heavenly decree is always a double-edged sword, bringing both blessing and judgment. The choice is yours. Without a doubt, I have revealed tremendous secrets of heaven to you today. There is no room for negotiation or compromise. It's us at the finish line. Let's make every effort to recover the 3 generations of God's family, complete on this earth in our lifetime, a new heaven and a new earth, filled with true love and free from the struggle between Cain and Abel. As one family, let's pledge to live in eternal very much. Yeah. Thank you very much. That's all I have to the True Father speech. It's very, very powerful and also very deep, and it's still very much relevant to us, to the mother in the final stage of the providence. And let's do our best and to support our mother and this final time, the providence. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Reverend Ito, for sharing with us. I'll just stop all that. Okay, so thank you. And before we share, I'd like to share another praise song. So just a second. There it is. So please enjoy.
So today, June 25th, is the day that Korean will begin. So I will perform a piece from the movie Taegukgi, The Brotherhood of War. Thank you. 네, 음악 부탁드리겠습니다.
Yeah, thank you. Just some thoughts about today's message, from the crowning ceremony. Yeah, there's a lot of things that were mentioned in this message, and many things to reflect on. But the few things that stood out for me were, the absolute standard uh, of faith, love, and obedience. And this standard was the standard that Adam and Eve were meant to have realized. And if they had realized it, then the fall wouldn't have happened and be very different. And so part of the process of restoration, is to realize this standard once again through the providential figures. And we know, he talked about the relationship of Cain and Abel, and the process should have happened. Abel's Adam and Eve's family should have had three generations. Should have been the parents, the children and the grandchildren should have, all followed the standard of, absolute faith and obedience, and the kingdom of heaven would have been realized within that family. But we know the fall didn't happen. Because of the fall, that didn't happen, and so, when Cain and Abel had a responsibility to be able, we have a chance to restore our parents' failure. Unfortunately, Cain killed Abel, and they both needed to have absolute faith and obedience towards each other, overcoming their difficulties by Abel having the responsibility to help his brother Cain, be able to connect, to heavenly, parent, but that didn't happen, and so the providence, as we know, continued with Seth down in the many generations, all trying to restore the eldest son. But it was the Abel who was meant to help Cain realize and change. And so, unfortunately, Noah's family, Ham failed, but Jacob succeeded. And then an interesting statement, it said that if Joseph had invited Esau's family as well as Jacob's family into Egypt, then the restoration would have been completed, because Jacob and Esau restored the Cain and Abel issue, but didn't live together. I mean, they stayed together, but then they parted ways. But if Joseph was able to unite them, which means the three generations, because Noah represented God, and Ham failed, but Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, with Abraham and Isaac sort of representing God, and then Jacob taking on, and then Joseph would have been the third generation within the lineage of the family. Then that would have changed the providence. Anyway, a lot of interesting thoughts came to my mind listening to all of that. But that didn't happen, and obviously, we're here with true parents now, and Father then highlighting three revolutions. In this speech, it said the revolution through atonement, which I think is a better translation than indemnity, because it has more depth to it than just the payment of a price, but atonement of sins. It carries with it a more spiritual weight, I believe. Then the revolution of conscience, and then the revolution of heart, and that ushers in the building Chongyil Cook, and also, of course, with the support of our good ancestors, because we can't do it on our own. We have to do it together over the many generations, and for many of us, our other relatives or our lineage are our good ancestors that we were able to liberate. So anyway, there's things that we have to do. The change of lineage, which happens through the blessing, that we need to help others realize, and also to bring Cain to natural submission, because being members following our true parents, we are on Abel's side, and therefore need to reach out to people who don't understand about our true parents, to be able to recognize the value of the blessing, and thereby really realize God's kingdom, and build Chongyil Guk. So a lot of good message that our Father gave, and really, I'll end my reflection on that. These are all things that we can use so that we can rearrange our life, because it mentioned that we really need to do that, and which is to rearrange it so that we complete the standard of absolute faith, love, and obedience. Anyway, that was some of my thoughts this morning. So thank you, and open up to anyone else who'd like to make a comment or share anything.
Cannot hear.
Yes. Yeah. You could hear me okay? Or when you said couldn't hear?
We could hear you.
Uh, okay.
Yeah, maybe I'll just say it a little bit. Thank you, Takaki. It's a very significant speech from Father, 2005 February. I remember that year as a very significant year. I think in May that year, Father declared Sanghap Ship Sangil, the point of the turning point between the time before the coming of heaven, the time after the coming of heaven. And also he outlined in another speech later that year about those steps: absolute faith, absolute love, absolute obedience, revolution of atonement, revolution of conscience, revolution of heart, as really a kind of formula for restoration. So yeah, thank you. It's really, in that speech, Father also focused a lot on the Cain Abel issue as well, culminating, the whole transition into God's kingdom. Anyway, thank you once again. Another lovely speech. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. All right. I think it's okay now. It's time for us to offer our unison prayer. So I think I'll just bring up that screen. Just 1 second. All right. So let's pray together. Thank you. Arju, Arju, Arju. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again, Reverend Takaaki, for sharing with us this morning. I hope everyone has a great day and see you all again tomorrow. So thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.